So now we're going to look at a timeline of changes to come for your 1 meal a day journey. What to expect on your pound drop pilgrimage. Obviously, people who come to the lifestyle of eating once a day are in for a lot of changes. Talking to those of you who are not yet familiar with the journey and have come to this video because you want to know what to expect. It doesn't matter how you found us. It doesn't matter how you got here. The point is you're considering changing your way of eating. You're probably struggling, and the worse off you are, the more difficult this will be. The better off you are, the least challenging it will be. But that's okay. People fast for lots of different reasons, but this is giving you an idea for long-term fasting. Those of you who need to redeem your lives, who need to rebuild your health, and you want to know what is it like, what is it going to be like to fast and eat once a day going forward for foreseeably the rest of your life. Well, that's what this video is about. And again, this is a reboot from our older video as we strive to stay relevant and to put this knowledge forward. So let's begin. So I have in the left-hand corner the traits, the things that people describe as the milestones of adjusting to eating once a day. And then right next to that, I have the stars, the star system, just like in the movies, 0 stars to 1 star, all the way to 4 stars, 4 stars being best, 0 stars being worst, or in this case, nothing. You can see the map there, the little chart, the graph, everything is grayed out that is 0, and then you have 1 star all the way up to the 4 stars. So when we talk about the timeline, we're talking about the increments thus described: 4 days, 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, and 6 months. Once you get past the 6-month mark, you're as good as doing it forever. Leading up to there, you're finding the different milestones of adjustment. And sometimes it's good to have some background on these so that you know what to expect. First of all, you have extreme hunger. That is extreme hunger as opposed to moderate hunger, as opposed to I could eat hunger. The first 4 days will always be the most challenging for the vast number of people. I say vast because there are people who tend to have it very easy for the first week, and then week 2 rolls around and they kind of reverse this paradigm where they find themselves suffering because they had so much stored glycogen in their liver and in their muscles that they didn't really feel the loss until some days into the journey. If the latter describes you, it has a lot to do with your level of experience fasting, number 1, and number 2, your overall health. A person who is has a responding system is going to see the difficulty quicker on. A person who is delayed, who doesn't notice much difficulty later on, that's an indicator of health problems to come, slower metabolism and whatnot. But no need to worry about that. Just identify where you are. The first 4 days are truly terrible. If you're used to fixing on food, especially if you eat a number of meals per day, you're in for a long haul, because you're going to find those first 4 days, especially the first 2, you're deciding if you even want to do this. Hopefully you've already decided that and you've made up your mind. But if you haven't, you're about to, because you're going to see that it's truly difficult. One of the ways I've always recommended to track hunger is to track hunger by noting what time it begins and ends. What you'll notice with most types of hunger is that they start for only a few minutes and they keep a mental impression for much longer. So you say, wow, I'm hungry today. I just feel so hungry tonight. If you actually tracked the hunger, you'd find that you were hungry 10 minutes of every hour or 5 minutes of every hour. It's not nearly as bad as you think. Except in the case of extreme hunger, where you are distracted, you can barely get your day job done, you can barely think at all, and the recurrent bouts of hunger keep coming every 5 minutes. That's part of the adjustment process, and that struggle is one of the great indicators on this journey. I say great because it lets you know you're on the right track. Underscore this, folks. The more difficult your journey is, the more you're probably doing it right. This is why I have always cringed when people say, it's easy, fasting is easy. That means your body's not putting you into a state of fat burning. What you want to do is be into a state of fat burning, and of course the first few days are what is going to protest, is where your body is going to protest and say, we don't like this. We want you to go back to eating the way you were. Coming from eating thousands and thousands of calories a day and then going to nothing, your body's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, what gives? But at the 5 to 7 day mark, you start to notice, although you're still hungry, a little bit less so. Until day 5, you don't notice a difference. It's just madness. Finally, day 14, which I refer to as the mission critical period, that is where your hunger takes a step down, noticeably. Now you're still hungry, but it's clearly manageable, and you can more easily track the bouts of hunger, as I've recommended, as the day goes by. You're not squashed with the feeling that you're just getting hit left and right to try to survive. And of course, as I've noted in a previous video, mission critical is the period of time you cannot splurge. It is the time where you need to teach your body in one solid, clear method that you're not going to forge, you're not going to fudge it, you're not going to wing it, you're going to do it correctly. That's the mission critical period. Past that period, you now, right around week 3.5, getting up to 30 days, your hunger is back down to normal hunger, I could eat hunger levels. And folks, let me tell you, I know exactly how it was. Coming from a guy who ate 9,000 calories a day, going down to 1,300, I can tell you how tough it was to be able to do this. When I finally got to week 3.5, I said, I know I can keep doing this. And that's where your first 30 days ends. You say, I know I can keep doing this. So you're hungry, but you're basically numb. You're not even hungry anymore. That's why the first days are so tough. The second your body's starting to adjust to what you're doing. So you have 30 days for extreme hunger to turn into, I could eat hunger. And when you know, as I've said for years on this channel, when you get to that point, you're in good shape. You're in really good shape because now you can make it, and you know you can make it. But you've got to make 30 days. I would say 45 days, but definitely 30 days, because that's how you know if you can be faithful till then, you're going to make it. But I tell everybody, give Omad 6 weeks, but definitely give it 30 days, and you'll notice that crazy hunger is going to go away because your body's going to become more efficient of a fat burner. And of course, as we're going to see when we get further along, it takes time for your body to become an efficient fat burner. And especially if you have a troubled metabolism, you have a history of yo-yo dieting, you're going to be very hungry, and your brain is going to start working against you more than your body. And we're going to see why. Going along with that, thankfully the next few going all the way down to hangry, we have stomach acid pains, dizziness, the runs, headaches, shakiness, and hangry. Those are all quick adjustments. So there's definitely good news there. Whereas hunger takes much longer, these things are very quick. Stomach acid pains, depending on how much stomach acid you make, how much of an overeater you were, you will find that you get stomach pains from time to time as your body starts to adjust to all of that bile and acid that is made in there, because that's what you did. If you go from eating 5,000 calories a day, 6,000, and you suddenly are eating 1,200, your body's going to have to scale down your chemical production to account for less food. And of course, that's not going to be a pretty process, because you're going to struggle. You're going to feel dizzy and queasy, and you're going to start to have stomach aches. That's a normal part of the process. Don't cave, because the odds are by day 5, that's all going to be gone. Actually, before that, before day 4 sometimes, you're going to see that go away. The same, that's connected with dizziness. The same thing is connected there. Your body is adjusting, and it's like suddenly you had a factory of 1,000 people with full 40 hours of all your employees, and then one day your employees came to work and the doors were closed, and the boss said, "There's no more work. Go home." Wait a minute. What are we going to do? How are we going to feed our families? That's a disturbing scenario, right? Well, that's what your body's saying when you start go into a state of fasting. It's going to start protesting. It's going to start saying, what gives? We're used to eating so much more. So you're going to have the symptoms like these. The runs is probably the thing that I have always noticed consistently anytime I went on a fast as a bigger unhealthy person. I would struggle with the idea of, or the fact of going to the toilet and having the runs. And of course, not to be TMI, but that yellowish brownish stuff that's coming out is part of your acids that your body is getting rid of, your salts, your acids, your bile, all of that, because your body's making excess fluids. And of course, when you get fatter, you start retaining water, you start retaining fluids. Your body's got to get rid of that, and it's got to get rid of that promptly. When you put your stuff into a state of fasting, you launch yourself ahead. Headaches, shaky and weakness, hangry, those are really all part of the same adjustment process as noted. What can you do? Nothing except remember that those are early problems solved. But if you don't get past them, you're going to have to face them at another point, and that's going to be not a good thing. So you're not as far off as you think. That is one thing to remind yourself of on this journey. You are not as far off as you think. Food fantasies and planning. Let's stop and talk about that for a while, because that's one of the most serious things you're looking at on the screen. Obviously, when you start at the end of your first week, your first 3 to 4 days of fasting, and you don't have experience, your food fantasies are going to be kicked into high gear. You're going to be saying, this is terrible, what can I do? And you're not going to know how to think. The problem becomes not then when you're expecting to be hungry, but when you're not expecting to be hungry as days 14 and 30 come around. Because as you will note, the hunger is still there. And one of the things that people do to short-circuit themselves fasting is they start getting into food planning for when they're not fasting. They start thinking of all the ways and the things they're going to eat when they don't have to fast. Folks, that is a recipe for failure. Remember, eat and be done with it. That's the Omad. It's one of like 4 or 5 Omad mottos. You don't go to food planning more than you have to. If it's 2 or 3 hours before your meal, if you're going to make meals, that's okay. If you're going to make meals for the week, that's okay. But remember, don't let your brain trick you into eating, because it will do that. And right when you start to see a lot of food fantasies and planning is when your brain is trying to get you to short circuit your efforts. Go back to the previous video I just did on the 9 cardinal principles of weight loss. Number 9 is your mind will play tricks on you. It's going to get you to cheat. And one of the ways it does that is to get you exposed to more food. You really have to think of this in a very negative way, because your lizard brain is working against your cognitive efforts, because it doesn't want you to die. And it's too dumb to know in and of itself that you're not going to die. So what do? You start planning, you start making checklists. So here's what I want, here's what I like. This is akin to cleaning out the pantry and doing all of those other diet things that you did for so many years and you always failed on. Please hear me loud and clear here. Understand that those first 30 days and food planning at any point in the journey should be taken seriously. That's very, very important to keep in mind. Can't stress that enough. Gallbladder pains. Here is one of those things that a lot of people get knocked off the fasting wagon from. Now, notice it's only a 2-star, meaning half intensity. Most people don't have that many gallbladder pains, but they do have some. So the first 4 days going up throughout 14 days, if you have gallstones or sludge in there, your body's going to let you know, because now you don't have enough fat coming in. Even if you do have fat coming in, you're not going to have, you might end up discovering that you have a problem. But if you followed my advice and you got checked out before you started your Omad, you would be in much better condition. Sometimes you find out that you need gallstones removed. That's not Omad's fault. That's your body's fault, because genetically you're not going to win every lottery that you play. In fact, you're not going to win most of them. How many of us are not as handsome or as tall or as genetically blessed as others? Most of us, right? You're not going to win all those battles. Be thankful for the ones you won. If you deal with gallstones, know that the vast majority of people will just feel pains, and these pains will gradually subside before 30 days, really. Basically 3 weeks and you're going to be okay. I noticed when I started, I did have occasional throbbing that came and went, usually in the evening. And then the next day rolled around, it tends to get better. If you want a tip with that, use distilled water, and it will continue to flush through what sediments you have in there. That may or may not solve your problem, but you will find that in almost all cases, that's not going to be a deal breaker for you. You will feel some pains adjusting, but it will not be impossible. And if it is impossible, you need to go to the ER, because you might be having a gallbladder attack anyway. So don't overestimate health problems on this journey, folks. You're going to feel fluey and headachy and sick sometimes because your body's adjusting. It is a natural part of things. Constipation, another sign that you are started on the right direction. Why do I say that? Because when you're eating once a day, your body's not getting hit with a bunch of meals that require you to fill up your digestion queue. So naturally, you're going to go to the bathroom less. That said, your body will sometimes get plugged up if you're not used to that. You might have to stop and deal with it with something like extra virgin olive oil. It helps. Coffee, if you're not a coffee drinker, helps. If you can't handle the caffeine or you're worried about it, there are coffees. There's actually Seneca leaves that induce bowel movements. So if you get into a situation, you can use those, and they won't break your fast. However, the vast majority of people will find that you're going to get past constipation. Your body's going to start adjusting. Your metabolism's going to come down, and then it's going to kick up again, because your body's not going to let you tank. The more clean you eat, you'll find that you tend to have less trouble there. You also want to make sure your electrolytes are balanced. So there's electrolyte options, fasting drinks that are available. Stuff like Zero Gatorade, which can help with bowel movements. Interesting situations that come up there do not usually threaten your journey. Again, you're not going to be 6 months and still be constipated. It just doesn't happen that way. If you are older, if you are 50-something and your metabolism is a little bit slower, you might struggle a little bit longer. But again, your body's going to adjust because it has to. Next is cold chills. Cold chills is one of those annoying things that come with fasting that you just kind of have to deal with. But it's actually a good sign, because what it means is your body is adjusting to a state of fat burning, and it's trying to downsize. And if you go back to the very first days of this channel, you'll see that I made a video about downsize the CEO of your body, so to speak. You will find that your body wants to downsize because it's worried about you dying. So because you're at a sustained calorie deficit, your body's going to start turning off lights, like in adjacent rooms, so to speak. It's going to start trying to, turn off the AC in certain parts of the building, by way of analogy there. And that's what it's trying to do. What do you do except stay active? And by stay active, I mean therapeutic walking, swimming, hiking, working, doing the things that you can normally safely do. As you go, the cold, you get to about that 90-day period, you'll notice you get colder. Some people will go longer than that. They'll go all the way to like 10 months. I've seen that happen. That happened in my case. But by then I was adjusted to it. And the reason your body does that is because, again, it's not rocket science. Your body's trying to downsize, and you have to remind it that you're not going to tolerate that you're going to require use of it, and your body will do what you require of it, just like anyone who ever works out will tell you. You get your muscles sore and broken down enough, they're going to build up stronger. And that's one of the things that you can do for your body. Now, sometimes this is confused for hypothyroid, because one of the signs of hypothyroid is getting very cold. It's not. And if you go and you run a test, you'll find that your thyroid is not in fact low. If it is, then it's something you already had going on. It's not to blame for Omad. I say that because there's always these people out there who love to blame fasting for health problems because they're so worried that something is going to go wrong with their body. It turns out that's not why. And if you were ever worried about that, if you increase the daily calories that you're getting, you would still solve the problem. So again, there is no need. And for those of us who've been doing it a long, long time, faithfully doing 1 meal a day, have been tested, still do not have thyroid troubles, you have nothing to worry about. So avoid the tendency to become a hypochondriac, because they're all over these parts on YouTube where you get lots of people that attribute lots of things to lots of different things. Wait, if you're worried about a deficiency, if you're worried about a condition, go get a blood test and do the sensible thing. This is where modern science does indeed help us. But cold chills are a part of the game, and when you're in a sustained fat loss, then that's a sign that you're doing well, because you're going to keep losing. You're not going to stay like that if you're not losing weight. Disrupted sleep. This is yet another indicator that your brain is doing what it's supposed to do. It's trying to keep you alive, so it's making you hypervigilant. This goes along with hunger high, which I've talked a lot about on this channel. I'm going to talk about more here. Disrupted sleep is very often a manifestation of hunger high. Notice that as hunger high comes into focus, your sleep disruption starts to be a thing. You're hungry, your body's saying, please don't die on me now. We can't have that. You're like, yes, body, I know, but we do need to forge ahead and make progress. So what happens? As the weeks pass, you start to realize you become sort of like a little Captain America or a Khan on Star Trek. You start to become a hyperfied version of your previous self. Your mind becomes congealed and concrete. Your thoughts come together. Your intellect comes into high gear. And what started at the 14-day mark, and it was almost unrecognizable, manifested in the 30-day mark, where you started to feel not only more focused and you were ready to get up and do things and tackle tasks around the house and at work, but then you started to notice those happy feelings. I'm talking to those of you here for a moment who are older on your fasting journey. You start to realize you lost those feelings of magic going through the day where you just go along and you feel those chemicals going on in your brain and you're like, everything is good. Well, you start to get those back as hunger high develops around day 30, day 45. As you focus, as you become hyper-focused and you become hyper-vigilant, your body is again continuing to maximize your productivity and your level of development. It will also continue to put you into your happy place in terms of your self-development. You'll start finding more books to read. You'll start finding things to memorize. Your brain will start compartmentalizing. Your OCD will maximize. You'll start putting things in boxes and you'll become a more adrenaline-charged version of yourself. But take heart, you're going to manage this process, so if you do find that you can't manage, then you're going to work on things like meditation, prayer if you're the praying type. Start relaxing. Start worrying about relaxing. Put more of a priority on that. Hunger high is awesome, though, because not only is it the ultimate sign of success while fasting, it is the manifestation that you are changing your brain. Now, I did a video on this, on long-term brain changes that your body does as you continue to maximize your greater version. And that's what this is really getting you to. Omad will always change you for the better. Finally, we come to what we close out at, weight loss honeymoon ends. The weight loss honeymoon is that period which starts when you begin burning water weight from day one. You start fasting, your body starts jettisoning all of that waste that you have on your body, usually in the form of water. It's the first thing you lose. If you find OMAD, you've already been doing that, you'll have less. But if you're coming and you're starting to fast for the first time, you're going to start noticing you get rid of a lot of stuff. But you're not burning fat yet because your body hasn't switched over. And that's why it's so hard during the first 4 to 7 days, because your body's used to burning sugar and foods that you take in, which makes this hard. But as time goes by, the weight loss honeymoon comes to an end. So you're seeing less loss on the scales. My first month on OMAD, I lost 25 pounds. Second, I lost 12. And then eventually it starts to come down. We could stretch that out. But that's okay, because again, that's a mark of actual permanent change. Once you've been fasting 45 days, 60 days, you realize you've actually lost a measure of body fat, minus the water weight that you lost. This is dieting stuff 101, folks. So you don't even need to be fasting or a fan of intermittent fasting in general to know this. This is very basic stuff. But folks, by way of summation here, this gives you an idea of what to expect. It gives you an idea of how you can use these things, this chart, this wisdom I'm giving you, to maximize your journey. It's your journey. You don't have to take it as far here, and you might notice, in fact, that your journey is significantly different. I challenge you today to put in the comments if your journey, for those of you who have completed your journey, what were some of the things that you noticed and didn't notice about this that were different for you, perhaps, than for the majority of others? How so do you think? What wisdom can you give others who are just starting their journey, who do not have experience doing this, that perhaps could benefit? And now there's so many people who have completed a year plus on 1 meal a day and can turn right around and talk about all of the benefits of doing so. And then on the other hand, you have so few who say, it didn't work for me. What does that tell you? It tells you the same thing that any change to any mastery, any life mastery can tell you. When you maximize your life, yourself, when you become mindful, you become a better version of yourself. And your food is no longer your master. Your eating habits are no longer out of control. They're in control. And now you know what to expect. I wish you well on your fasting journey. Please reach out with any questions.